I've hatched a sort of scheme to cover all the bases, or so it may seem. I'm an amateur knife maker, and I'd like to get some exposure by making some good knives and getting them into the hands of some people who can test them and review them. So I was kind of chatting with Jacob B. Peterson in his comments section, and this idea kind of came to me. Why don't I make him a knife to his spec within a certain series of limitations, which we'll come to, send it to him, and then he can test it and review it. And it's his knife to his spec, so he should keep the knife, whereby he should compensate me with a coin of the realm, any value. And hopefully, well, I mean, there's no bad outcome, really. It's an experiment, right? So there would be no bad outcome. Now, perhaps the ideal for me is that he says, wow, this is a great knife. It's so good. Everybody contact this guy and get him to make you a knife. That could also be very bad for me. So, maybe we'll see about that. But to have his honest opinion, right? And so I kind of proposed this to him, hashing out the idea. He seemed interested. And later I thought, why don't I do it for Captain Electro as well? Because he did this knife maker challenge and it got me to start uploading, and I'm having a whale of a time. So why don't I get him to join in as well? So those were my first choices. And then also I had another guy came to mind. I thought, well, Steel City Knives, he's pretty cool. I liked his rant about Rosecraft blades, and he's got good taste, and he's an aficionado. Now, Captain Electro, I would say I would call him an amateur like me. He just loves it. He makes knives, fiddles around with them. He's not a professional. And Jacob B. Peterson, he's a professional. So if I could get those three guys, then I get a pro, an amateur, an aficionado, feedback, get some knives out there, maybe get them. They know how to make good videos better than me. And if the knives are crap, then, we'll all find out. And that'll be good. That's a good outcome too. I think they're good. I think they will be good. I didn't make them yet, but I think within my wheelhouse, which is pretty basic, kind of homespun knife kind of thing. Yeah, and they got something going for them. And I learned how to make things sharp. I make them really sharp. It's not a factory edge. We're talking, convexed out and bit of a polished edge, but you can put teeth on that easily. So our friend here is going to indicate the star of the show. 1980s Stanley USA Chisel. They probably banged out 1 million of these things for the domestic market. My reasoning, which I came to test when I first made this knife, pretty much by hand, was, if you can call it a knife, I mean, it's kind of like a caping blade or something, right? It cuts. Yeah, I found this in a consignment store, this chisel. I said, hey, you could make a knife out of this. I took it home. I just made this thing. And once I finally got it sharp-ish, I said, this seems like some really good steel. Let me find more of these chisels. I found out they made 3 different sizes. A 1/2 inch, a 3/4 inch, and a 1 inch. And they're 4 inches long. They're made out of some kind of mystery steel, but I would assume it's a good steel. From doing a force patina on one knife that I made and completed with this, with one of these chisels, with a 1 incher, which knife I then sold to my cousin, so I can't show it to you, but it came out very well. And I did a forced patina on that, and it didn't take the patina very easily at all. So I think it's some kind of semi-stainless chrome vanadium tool steel. I don't know what, but we could assume, the false assumption being the mother of all, but I think we could safely assume that Stanley USA in the 80s knew how to figure out a good steel for woodworking purposes, right? And how to heat treat it well. That's what I was banking on. So far, I think I've confirmed this theory for myself. It's not a super steel, but I like the way it behaves. It's a nice classic steel, let's say. From an amateur perspective. So I bought a load of these chisels and I started grinding out profiles. So here we have some examples of some profiles for just out of interest for the general viewing public and for the 3 potential participants or more, because who knows, maybe someone else would like to come along and join in the program. Here are some examples of blade profiles. You might want to pick one or you might want something else. But this would be a kind of a bushcrafting, bit of a Wharncliffe thing going on there, right? We'll raise the bevel on that. And the stage that it's at, I've roughed it out. I've put a rough bevel in. I've banged it straight with a carbide hammer, hence those pock marks there. The next thing I would do is remove the handle with a sawzall, drill a hole here and there. There is already a hole down here. So then you get, compared to a conventional stick tang, a way more robust half tang. Because a normal stick tang will get really thin right here and all the way down, right? That's a fail point, but this is better, in my opinion. A bit better. So construction-wise, yeah, then it would get clamshelled into a handle, like this re-handle that I'm working on. Pinned in there. These are lilac pins. They could be invisible pins. Up till now, I've always made my pins visible. Then we'll have a collar and a spacer. So these would be the elements. Collar, spacer, handle material, pins material. Potentially you want a lanyard. And 3 different sizes of blade stock. You could have a 1-inch long, 1-inch wide blade, a 4-inch long, 1/2-inch wide blade, whatever, right? In whatever profile should be reasonably possible for me to accomplish, which, yeah, so examples, we got that one. Here's a Wharncliffe, kind of traditional, small Wharncliffe. Ram's foot. Sheep's foot. Lamb's foot. Large Wharncliffe. Kind of a Lanny's clip point. I started drawing in a kind of a C-ax into this one. So yeah, I would obviously cut that with a grinder, and then the rest of the profile would grind out on a wheel and then start in with the belt grinder. Of course, this has these extra things here that you kind of have to allow for in your designs. That's why, you know, I can't use all of this thickness here or what have you, know, or you swedge it or whatever. You figure it out. It's a minor inconvenience on the one hand, but on the other hand, they started putting a bevel in for you, which when you work as slowly as I do, that's nice. Save me perhaps 5 or 10 minutes of grinding. So what more can I say about this? Guys, I hope you accept. It's a sincere offer because I think it could be fun for all of us, and I don't see the harm in it, so it's wholesome, right? I get a coin, you get a knife, I get some exposure and some feedback. Doodle pip.